Into the Lattice. Ham Calloway, chief engineer. I fix things, break things, and occasionally get launched at alien planets. You have tea. ISV Cashin, Earth Station, Vance Lattice Hold Kethvorath, unnamed system. Crosslog, Ham Calloway Personal Record Mission, Day 4461. The memo from ISV Command arrived 3 days after the meeting with 3, in the form of a 12-page document that Director Price had clearly written herself, because it had her particular way of building to a conclusion, patient, logical, and arriving at the end like a door that had been closing the entire time, and you only noticed when it shut. The summary of the 12 pages was this. Harlan Vass's field assessment had shifted the program's understanding of the Corridor 9 situation sufficiently that 2 parallel initiatives were being authorized. The first was a joint research operation between the ISV Meridian and a Lathian scientific equivalent. The program was calling it a Collaborative Anomaly Survey, which was the bureaucratic version of 2 confused parties staring at the same unexplained thing, and hoping 2 confused perspectives were better than one. The second was the transfer of 1 ISV crew member, engineering specialist Hamish Calloway, to a Lathian facility to work with 6 on the decryption of the REM-MOS partial data files. Both initiatives were contingent on Lathian agreement. The Lathian response to the joint Meridian survey took 4 hours and came back as the Ketheran research vessel continuance will rendezvous with ISV Meridian at Corridor 9 boundary coordinates within 7 standard days. Collaborative protocols to be established on contact. This was, for the Lathians, practically effusive. The Lathian response to transferring Ham to a Lattice hold took considerably longer. 41 hours, to be precise. Maddox had been watching the response timer with the specific attention of someone who understood that the length of a Lathian silence was itself data, and 41 hours was a silence that said, "We have discussed this extensively, found it deeply irregular, concluded it is nonetheless necessary, and would like it noted that we find it deeply irregular." The response, when it came, read, "Engineer Calloway may be transferred to Lattice Hold Kethvorath for the purpose of joint decryption work with Strand Member 6. Duration not to exceed 20 standard days. The engineer is to bring his own food. The hold's nutritional provisions are not configured for human biological requirements." Maddox read that last sentence twice. Ham, reading over his shoulder, "They specified food. They actually specified food. They thought about my food requirements. He stopped. That's either touching or slightly ominous, and I genuinely cannot tell which." "Bring enough for 3 weeks, Maddox said. Just in case." "Just in case what?" "Just in case it takes 3 weeks. They said 20 days. Ham, have you met us?" Ham looked at him. He looked at the message. He went to pack more food. While Ham packed, Maddox took the Cashin to Earth Station Vance for what the program's logistics division was calling a routine maintenance interval, and what Maddox, having read the actual specifications, was calling a weapons and drive upgrade significant enough that the Cashin was going to come out of it a substantially different ship from the one that had gone in. The drive augmentation was an enhanced corridor transit system, not Lathian technology, but something the program's engineering teams had been developing in response to the drive drift problem the Cashin had experienced in the Knot Nebula. Better local reference frame anchoring, which Ham had been advocating for since Corridor 9, and which the program had apparently decided was worth funding after Vass's report mentioned it. The weapons upgrade was less technical in its description and more emphatic in its implication. The Cashin was getting point defense arrays and a primary charge system that Maddox read about for a long time before he filed it under things that have changed and looked out the station window at the dark crew working on his ship's hull. Yara standing beside him. "The program is preparing for something." "The program is preparing for the possibility of something," Maddox said. "Which is different. Is it?" Maddox looked at the drive augmentation crew attaching new housings to the Cashin's port nacelles. He thought about the 41-year number. He thought about the unknown attacker with its wave discharge weapons and its complete absence from any registry. He thought about the unerry coordinates, 60% recovered and pointing at a location in the corridor that was apparently close enough to reach in a few days aboard a Lathian vessel. No, he said, not really. He watched his ship being made ready for something they hadn't named yet and thought about his father, who had talked about stars and meant something the stars were standing in for, and wondered if this was what that something had actually looked like from the inside. The Cashin came out of Vance Dock 14 days later with new drive housings, a weapons loadout that Maddox chose not to describe in his standard mission log, and Ham's absence, which was louder than expected. Ham had left for Lattice Hold Kethvorath 11 days before the dock work finished, via a Lathian courier shuttle that had appeared at the station's outer bay at the agreed time with the particular punctuality of a species that found tardiness structurally incoherent. Ham's last communication before boarding the shuttle. If I'm not back in 20 days, it's Wren's fault somehow. I haven't worked out the specifics yet, but it'll come to me. Maddox watching the shuttle depart. Safe travels, Ham. Aye, Ham said. And if the Lathians are weird about the tea, I'm filing a formal grievance. The shuttle was already out of range before Maddox could respond to that. Lattice Hold Kethvorath was the first Lathian city Ham had ever seen from the inside, and it was nothing like he'd expected, and also exactly like he'd expected, which was the specific cognitive dissonance of encountering something you've built a model of from second-hand information, and finding that the model was structurally correct, but emotionally completely wrong. He'd expected the geometry. The codex Maddox had compiled described lattice hold architecture as functional, vertical, dense, with no ornamentation, and it was all of those things. But the codex had not adequately conveyed the scale. The hold rose in tiers around a central node tower that was wide enough at its base to put a city block inside it, and the buildings that surrounded it arranged themselves in precise radial geometry that, from the shuttle's approach angle, looked less like a city and more like a very large, very patient calculation rendered in material form. The lattice patterns etched into every surface caught the system's light and held it in ways that made the whole structure faintly, constantly luminescent, not glowing exactly, but present in a way that other buildings weren't, like it was aware of the light and had decided what to do with it. Okay, Ham said to the shuttle's Lathian pilot, who had said approximately 12 words in the entire 3-hour transit and seemed to consider this adequate. I'll admit, that's impressive. The pilot said nothing. Not a conversationalist, Ham noted, right then. The shuttle landed on a precision-marked pad in the hold's transit sector, a flat, open area that had clearly been designed to accommodate vehicles and had the quality of a space that was used for exactly its intended purpose and nothing else. No benches, no gathering areas, no ornamentation, just landing pads and approach lines and the exact amount of space required for the function and nothing more. 6 was waiting at the edge of the pad. Ham came down the shuttle ramp with his kit bag over one shoulder, a crate of food supplies on the ground behind him, and a thermal flask in his right hand that he was already drinking from. He looked at 6. 6 looked at him. 6 looked at the thermal flask. Is that tea? 6 said. It is, Ham said. Did you bring more? I brought enough for 3 weeks, Ham said, as instructed. You were instructed to bring food, 6 said. Tea is food. 6 considered this with the focused assessment of a Lathian encountering an argument that was logically questionable but practically correct. The steeping duration on your previous preparation was superior, he said. I would like to understand the methodology. I'll show you the methodology, Ham said, after you show me the problem we're supposed to be solving. 6 looked at him. You are aware this is a Lathian administrative hold and not a social facility. Aye, Ham said. I'm also aware I'm the only person you've met who makes the tea properly, so let's call it even and get on with it. Something happened on Six's face that wasn't quite a smile, but had a similar address. He turned and walked into the hold's interior. Ham picked up his crate and followed. The interior of Kethvorath was, if anything, more precisely realized than the exterior. Every corridor had a function evident in its dimensions, wide for transit, narrow for access, the dimensions telling you what you were supposed to do in them. The Lathians they passed moved with purposeful economy, not hurrying, never drifting. They looked at Ham the way scientists looked at an interesting specimen they had been told not to touch, which was to say with focused, professional interest and no trace of the casual friendliness that Ham was used to being received with. Two of them, passing in a wider corridor, stopped to look at him for a full 3 seconds. Not rudely, just completely. They're staring, Ham said quietly to Six. They are assessing, Six said. You are the first human to enter a lattice hold. The category does not yet exist in most of their operational frameworks. They are creating it. Creating a category for me, Ham said. Is that good? It is neutral, Six said. Categories are not judgments. They are simply necessary. Right, Ham said. He waved at the two Lathians who were still watching. They did not wave back. They did, however, both tilt their heads at precisely the same angle, which Ham found simultaneously charming and deeply strange. Do they all do that at the same time? Ambient convergence, Six said. In a lattice hold, the node tower sustains a low-level resonance across all residents. It is not full Vatha. It is more like shared peripheral awareness. So they all sort of know what each other is thinking. Not thinking, attending, there is a difference. Sure, Ham said. Right, totally normal. He looked at the node tower through a corridor window, its base visible from here, an enormous structure of interlocking lattice filaments that pulsed with the same low luminescence as the building surfaces. Does that thing ever turn off? No, Six said. Does it bother you, living with it? Six looked at him. Does your own heartbeat bother you? Ham opened his mouth, closed it. Fair enough, he said.